Welcome to Secret Affairs. In today's video, I'm taking you inside a story that began in the quietest corner of my everyday life, my own kitchen. A warm Thursday afternoon that felt like every other Thursday I'd experienced in Springfield, Illinois. For those who don't know me, my name is Claire Matthews. And at the time this story took place, I was 33 years old and living in a calm suburban neighborhood with my husband of nearly 10 years, Daniel. Springfield isn't the kind of place where stories explode out of nowhere. Life here usually drifts by like a gentle stream, predictable, steady, comforting. And honestly, I love that. I loved the routine, the rhythm, the sense that tomorrow would look very much like today. Every morning, I'd wake up to the faint smell of Daniel's coffee brewing. I'd get ready for my shift at the local library, where I've worked for years. Evenings meant dinner together, usually at 6 o'clock sharp, followed by a short walk if the weather let us. Weekends were slow and pleasant farmers markets, movie nights, helping neighbors with small favors. In the comfortable hum of ordinary days, life felt safe. But looking back now, I realize something important. Life rarely warns you before it shifts. Sometimes the smallest moment whispers its way into your memory and anchors itself there forever. And that's exactly what happened on this particular Thursday. The afternoon that wasn't supposed to be special, it started with the smell of lemon and rosemary drifting through the house. I had decided to host a small dinner for my friend Megan, someone I hadn't seen in months. She and I used to be inseparable in college, but life, as it does, sent us in different directions, different jobs, different cities, different priorities. So this dinner felt like a chance to reconnect, to laugh again, to revisit the kind of friendship that doesn't fade but simply waits patiently. Daniel had mentioned earlier in the week that his coworker Ethan might stop by that afternoon to borrow some tools from the garage. I had met Ethan maybe twice before. He struck me as the kind of person who didn't force conversation but never seemed impolite. Tall, always wearing a polite half smile, the kind that made you wonder what he was thinking. The type of person you assume has a perfectly normal life, but you'd never know because he never overshared. Nothing about the day felt extraordinary. The sun was bright. The house was warm. The oven hummed softly. I moved from room to room, adjusting pillows, wiping counters, lighting a candle or two just to make the place inviting. Everything was normal. Or at least it looked that way at first. The moment before the moment around 4:15 p.m. I realized I had completely forgotten about the bread rolls I bought earlier that morning. That might sound like a small detail, but I'm the type who likes things just so when guests come over. I wanted the dinner to be perfect, maybe because Megan was such a great cook, maybe because I missed her more than I realized. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Megan, running a little late. Be there soon. That gave me a bit more time. I headed into the pantry, our old wooden-floored pantry that always creaked loudly when someone stepped in or out. As I bent down to grab the bread basket from the lower shelf, I started humming to myself, lost in thought. And then, a soft, unexpected creak right behind me. Not the normal slow moan of the old floorboard. This was sharper, closer. Someone was right behind me. I froze, not because I was scared, but because the sound was so out of place. Daniel had been outside watering the garden, or so I thought. Straightened up quickly, still holding the bread basket, and turned around, and there stood Ethan, the awkward second that lasted too long. Ethan wasn't doing anything unusual. He was simply standing there holding a screwdriver. But the timing of it, the closeness of it, the sheer unexpectedness of seeing someone behind me when I thought the house was empty. It startled me. And judging by the flicker of surprise on his face, it startled him too. Sorry, Claire, he said with a small, slightly embarrassed laugh. Didn't mean to sneak up on you. I exhaled and laughed too. It's the nervous kind of laugh you give when you know a moment shouldn't feel strange. But it somehow does. No worries, I said, placing the bread basket on the counter. I didn't hear you come in. He stepped back slightly, giving me more space. Daniel told me I could grab the screwdriver from the garage. I knocked, but I guess you didn't hear. I nodded. It's probably the oven. This thing sounds like a jet engine when it's on. For a second, neither of us said anything. Not because there was tension, not that kind of tension, but because the moment had caught both of us off guard. Sometimes two people just accidentally collide in a moment that wasn't meant to be shared. It's not meaningful, not inappropriate, just oddly timed. Small talk, big memory. Ethan glanced at the breadbasket on the counter. "That for dinner tonight?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied. "I'm trying to impress Megan. She's a great cook." He chuckled softly. "Pressure's on then." We talked for a minute or two, nothing deep. Recipes. How hot the summer had been. The kind of simple conversation you forget the next day. And yet for some reason, I didn't forget that one. Not the words, not the conversation, just the feeling. As if life had paused for a fraction of a second, letting me notice something I normally wouldn't. Then Daniel came in from the backyard, drying his hands on a kitchen towel. He lit up when he saw Ethan. "Hey, you found the screwdriver?" Daniel said. "Yep, thanks again for lending it to me," Ethan replied. They talked for a moment, then Ethan left as quietly as he'd come. And just like that, the strange little pantry moment was over. Dinner, laughter, and lingering thoughts. Megan arrived not long after. Dinner went better than I expected. We laughed, reminisced, swapped updates about life and work. It felt like breathing fresh air after months indoors. But every so often, my mind drifted just for a second back to the pantry. Not because of Ethan, not because anything happened, but because of how unexpected it felt. As if a tiny crack had opened in the perfect routine of my day, letting a small gust of unpredictability slip in. And that feeling stayed with me, not in a dramatic way, not in a dangerous way, just there, quiet but present. The night after that night, as Daniel slept beside me, I lay awake thinking about how simple the moment was, how nothing actually happened, but how human it felt. We go through our routines assuming every hour will unfold exactly as we expect. But sometimes, without warning, the universe tosses a tiny pebble into the still water of our day, creating a ripple we didn't see coming. That pantry moment. It became the pebble, a reminder that life isn't always smooth. It isn't always predictable. And sometimes, the smallest encounter can nudge our perspective just enough to make us pay attention again. That pantry moment lingered in my mind longer than I expected. Not because it meant anything significant in itself, but because it made me suddenly aware of how many moments in my life I walked through without truly noticing. The next morning when I woke up, the house felt the same as always. Daniel was already in the kitchen making coffee, humming something I didn't recognize, but I felt different. Just a little. Maybe that's how growth happens, not in big life-changing waves, but tiny, almost imperceptible shifts that change how we see the world. And as I moved through the next days, those small shifts kept happening. A grocery store, hello? A few days later, I went to the grocery store to pick up some Staples milk, eggs, vegetables, the usual. The store was quiet, the aisles nearly empty, except for the occasional retiree walking slowly with a basket. As I reached the door, an older man with silver hair held it open for me with a polite smile. "After you," he said kindly. And for some reason, it hit me in a way that felt warmer than usual. A small exchange, nothing more. But I felt it, noticed it, absorbed it. At the library at work that afternoon, I was shelving returned books when an elderly man approached me holding a slip of paper. He wanted a book his late wife used to love. The system didn't show anything, but something made me try harder alternate spellings, old catalog entries, dusty archives. 10 minutes later, I found it. "You found it," he whispered. And again, I felt that ripple, that awareness. The storm that broke the routine a week later, a sudden storm swept over Springfield. When I arrived home, Daniel was waiting on the porch with 2 umbrellas. Inside, the house felt warm and quiet. We sat by the window, watching the rain. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine. Thinking." We shared a comfortable silence. I didn't bring up the pantry moment. Not because I was hiding anything, but because it wasn't about Ethan. It was about what the moment awakened. A quiet awareness of the life happening around me. Game night with Ethan and Lily 2 weeks later, Daniel suggested inviting Ethan and his wife, Lily, for a game night. It felt easy, natural. Lily was warm and hilarious. Daniel told a ridiculous story that made all of us burst into laughter. There was no awkwardness, no tension. That pantry moment shrank into a harmless footnote. The unexpected aftermath. But the awareness it sparked didn't fade. I noticed the barista's tiny latte art. A teenager sharing her umbrella with her little brother. A neighbor waving at the same time every morning. Porch lights glowing at dusk. Kids laughing in the distance. Life had always been full of little miracles. I was just finally seeing them. A conversation I didn't expect. A month later, while cleaning the garage, Daniel mentioned, "Ethan said he thought he scared you that day in the pantry." I laughed. He did. Daniel smiled. "You're so predictable, Claire. Sometimes life taps you to make sure you're awake." And he was right. The lesson behind it all. That night, I realized life is made of tiny moments that slip between the big ones. A stranger holding the door. A laugh. A scent. A conversation. None of them change your life dramatically, but they change how you experience it. The ripple expands. Even my relationship with Daniel felt deeper. I noticed the little things he did for me. How he listened more than he spoke. How he cared in quiet ways. How much I had overlooked. A quiet epiphany 6 weeks after the pantry moment. I stood outside at sunrise, watching the sky shift from gold to peach. Life had slowed down enough for me to finally catch up. It wasn't the pantry moment that changed anything. It was the awareness it awakened. A reminder that life is happening now, not later.